Hello, I'm Paul Yeager. This is the M2M podcast, and we are inside the studios of Iowa PBS and the Market to Market TV show. We are going to continue our conversation with farmers. We do that quite often here on this podcast, but this one is a farmer we have talked to 2 times before. Bryan Pippitt is a farmer from Northeast Nebraska. We talked to him a couple of times this year, kind of set up what's going to happen for this season. Then we talked to him when everything was green, everything looked good. You know what happens. We start talking about the weather, and it changed. We're going to find out how it might not have been all about the lack of rain that caused issues for him this season, but we'll find out what optimism remains and what is ahead. If you have feedback for me, hit me up in an email, paul.yeager@iowapbs.org. Now, let's get to our conversation. You know, Bryan, once you mentioned the rains have been good, we knew at that exact moment what was about to happen. And it came true, right? The rains kind of stopped.
Yeah, maybe for a couple more weeks after that, but it was pretty short-lived, and, about 2 straight months without anything.
So what did that mean then?
Yields all around are down a little bit, and, for the fact of rain, probably mostly in the soybeans, but in corn, we also had some disease show up this year. We had tar spot, which is due to us, some southern rust, which the guys around here blamed on the hurricanes coming up a little bit further north than normal, but, it got challenging after I talked to you last. We were on a pretty high note when we were spraying in that last chat. I don't know, I think it's probably first week of July, somewhere first week of July, and, we had rain through the month of July, but about July 31st was the last decent measurable one, and after that, it kinda shut off till harvest was over.
At that point, if the pivots haven't been on, do you turn them back? Do you turn them on? Or I know dry land, you have no you have no pivots, but what's the strategy there? I don't understand it always.
Yeah, we irrigate out nonstop, and I don't know, our goal, whether right or wrong, we always kinda try and run around once a week, and they vary, but we kinda try to put on, like, 3/4 of an inch once a week, and, we probably end up making, like, 6 circles then, 6 or 7 circles, 'cause, we are in a water district, so we have to turn in our readings at the end of the year, and it looked like I put on between, like, 5 and 6 inches on most of the irrigators that I ran, for at least for corn-wise, and beans are similar. We went a little bit longer in the season with beans, but we also got to the end, and, just maybe for more of the corn side with the disease come in, it died fast, but it just went from irrigating to dying to drying down, and we had a bunch of 12 and 13% corn in first part of October. It just went from one extreme to the other.
And that's weird. I mean, but it's not uncommon for so many in the corn growing areas. It just seemed to be that was the story I have heard. Your story is not unique. Does that give you any solace that you know you're not alone?
Well, yeah, it doesn't make me feel a lot better, but at least, yeah, like you say, we weren't the only ones. It seemed like it was kind of a general consensus around here where, I mean, there was little showers not far away. Honestly, 20, 30 miles east of us had a nice rain early September, but at that point, it probably helped more for the beans. I don't know if it really helped the corn or not, but they're also they're dry out over there anyway. So I feel like the corn that irrigating, we were supplementing able to keep up, but it's just the idea when the disease moved in, it was unforeseen, unexpected, and it was a lot harder than we thought it was going to be, than we anticipated.
A lot harder in which way?
Just on the yield, I would say we're probably 25, 30 bushels short on corn from what we were expecting. Probably
Is
across the board.
Is it mostly because of the lack of moisture, or was there heat as a factor?
I would say corn mostly for disease, and I would blame the soybeans. I would say we're probably 5 bushels short, and I would blame that on getting dry in the month of August. And it's just tough to irrigate beans. It just seems like we need a rain in August to get our high-end beans. And I know had a lot of mid-60 bushel beans and a lot of 220 to 225 bushel corn, which last year I think we're all 240 to 260. So I mean, it looked like it was there. And it just dried fast. I mean, we were combining soybeans and the corn was 24, 25% yet. We got a couple weeks later and we didn't combine anything hardly over 15% all year long.
Nothing over 15.
I think 2 fields averaged over 15. Yeah. Only 2 whole fields.
Well, I guess you saved on drying costs?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I wish we would have had the bushels.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure exactly that's what you want. So let's go to the disease part of this discussion for a minute. Was it easy to diagnose? Did the agronomists, were they stumped, or was it just the run of the mill stuff? We all knew what was going on.
Well, once we knew what it wasn't hard to see, and I guess at that point, we thought it was late enough in the season. We were kind of under the assumption that it maybe wasn't gonna affect yield too much. It was probably we were hoping it was late enough in the game, and we thought we were through the filling part, and as long as it didn't affect test weight or, jeopardize stock quality, we thought we were gonna be alright, but, um yeah, I think we lost the yield just because it dried so fast. I mean, it went from green and irrigating to, just brown and dry in a matter of a couple weeks, it seemed like. We irrigated till mid-September, and we combined middle October, and it was 12 and 13%. So it just way faster than normal. Usually, on a normal year, we drive around looking for something drying at the combine. We don't have a real good way of drying, so we like combine corn around 18, 19%, and we, usually will do end rows and move to another field, or, we don't always just keep going. And this year we went to a field and we combined it and we moved to the next one. There was just everything was dry.
Did you get the sense you were isolated, or was it your neighbors were going through the same thing?
Yeah, it was, I would say it's a huge area, but our immediate area, everybody's affected the same way. You could just tell, just talking to people, everybody was getting tired of harvest. We were done October 28th. We've never been done in October that I can remember, and we were 2 weeks early. Once we started September 26th, we took a weekend off for wooding, took some Sundays off, and we were done October 28th. So it was about a month straight, and we were done. So yeah,
Well, that means you had to watch the bad part of the Husker football season then,
yeah,
because the
yeah,
good part was early.
yeah, yeah. That was oh well, we won a bowl game. We're maybe making progress.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Volleyball had a good season too. I know not making the national championship considers it a bad thing, but it's still good. It's still a good squad.
Yeah, we have somebody to cheer for. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll call it a success.
So that allowed November to be open to do things. So how much field work got done, or what was the strategy?
It was a little slow, and we're all no-till and do some cover crops. We were kind of slow getting that done just because it was so dry. We weren't sure if it was going to mount anything or not, but there wasn't a lot of field work done, not a lot of fertilizer spread, and then we did get a couple rains. I don't remember exactly when they were, middle November, and then it seemed like some guys were going to start spreading fertilizer again, but we're not in a hydrous area, so a lot of stuff is just P and K in the fall. Some manure got spread. We spread a little bit of manure, but even just talking to like the fertilizer places, they were slow until December. It seemed like they just weren't. No, I don't know. Maybe that was part of the economy. Nobody wanted to spend any money on fertilizer, or just dry, or for whatever reason. It just normally it seems like when harvest is over, there's guys doing field work, spreading fertilizer, pulling fences out. Just a lot of stuff. And this year it seemed like there wasn't much action. At least to me, it didn't seem like there was.
Did you get the sense that it was more of, well, you mentioned cost, but do you think it was more cost or drought related for that lack of action?
I would probably say or just being too dry. I think I don't know, and part of it just being the economy too. But I think guys probably just weren't willing to spend money if they weren't sure it was going to get rained in or didn't want to sit on top of the ground. And I don't know, maybe for both reasons. I'm not sure which one more so than the other, but just the combination. I think we're just guys reluctant to pull the trigger. I think.
Farmers are always optimistic. There's always optimism. Is it out there right now, given there was some rain in November and maybe a little bit of rain in December?
Um, I think so. I think everybody's kind of concerned, and it seems like maybe equipment sales. It seems like we've had a lot of salesmen approaching us, trying to get us to do stuff. So I get the idea that they're slow or things aren't moving, which makes me think that guys maybe aren't doing their normal year-end things. But I know you're starting to see grain moving again, and guys are hauling grain, and it's starting to seem a little more normal for this time of year to me. I think we got some corn to move. We haven't got started yet. We had a little bit of snow 2 days ago, so the ground's white, and we're just kind of waiting for the roads to dry up. But it seems like there's trucks moving again, and kind of starting to seem more like January. I would say.
Do you get the sense anybody's going to hold on to grain, or they're going to sell thinking that worse is ahead?
I think some guys right now are hoping it gets better, but in the back of my mind, we're kind of getting to the point now where we're hoping for a little bit basis. We do a lot of stuff on the board, so we're kind of waiting for a little bit better basis. And I guess we're kind of being patient for now, but I don't know. We give it a few more weeks. If we get into January, I think we're going to pull a trigger if it doesn't show a lot of improvement by then. And it's just going to be time to start moving, I think. So we like to move grain during the winter time, and especially before planting time. So I don't know if it's stubborn or optimism or just patience, but we're trying to hold off for a few more weeks unless something happens. I think there's a report Thursday and kind of see what the rest of this week holds. But I guess we're kind of itching to do something, and we got a little bit to go, but maybe not as much as normal for this
I
time of
like to
year.
use optimism, not stubborn,
Okay. Okay.
in that discussion. But sometimes you're gonna have to use both words. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll say we're optimistic then that the basis is
Yeah,
going to improve.
like it is in say June, July, August is fair season. People kind of get around to travel. You're about to go into farm show season. What do you think is going to be the opening line a farmer says to one another to kind of feel out what they're thinking? Like, you selling, you holding, you making any changes for next year?
I I think there'll be some of that, but I think like in our immediate area, a lot of guys, there's a few little conventions, the CD they're putting on some, speeches or these talks or whatever. And it seems like the focus of a lot of them is diseases. It seems like last year we got hit with white mold real bad in our soybeans, and this year we had tar spot, which are kind of new to us. And it seems like a lot of guys are a little paranoid about that, especially in our area. I told you earlier that there's a fair amount of corn on corn here, and they said that the residual left over from the corn stalks and tar spot can linger and stick around for a few years. And I think guys that are going back to corn or just that mindset. I mean, last year the beans were a little depressing, but then we combined some very good corn, so you kind of got out of your mind. And this year, when you combine some average beans and then go through a average or tiny bit below average corn, it kind of sticks with you a little bit more. It seems like so. I think a lot of guys are focusing, or at least in our immediate operation, we spent a lot of time looking at hybrids that we used some fungicides this year, so we looked at hybrids that had an effect from a fungicide pass or that didn't see a response, or that's kind of what we focused on immediately after harvest. And it seems like there's been a lot of talk about that hybrids and fungicides and just disease in general.
Again, soils are different, and you kind of said you don't do much tillage, but that's also because your whole family is, you're more into no-till. But is crop rotation a solution, or when you said it might be around for years, it doesn't matter what you plant?
Yeah. I think rotation helps. They say tillage helps. Baling corn stalks help, or grazing cattle on it helps. But then the next guy will tell you that unless your neighbor does the same thing you're doing, it can still, blow in or move in. So it's not unless it's kind of either everybody tills or everybody bales their corn stalks or this or that. So I guess we're reluctant to till. Just we're not 100% sure that's going to be a guaranteed solution. And I guess we've seen the downsides of erosion, so we're not willing to make that. I guess we're going to try. We're not gonna have a lot of corn on corn. I would say 400 acres next year will be corn on corn. So it's not like it's a huge portion of our acres, but it's still something that we got in the back of our mind and considering. And we're trying to place hybrids that this year we didn't necessarily see the response. We thought it was a little bit healthier hybrid or had a little more defense against those kinds of things is what we were looking at for next year.
Are all the acreage decisions made on what's going to be planted where?
Yeah, and we're going heavy corn again, just for
So,
logistical
but
wise.
nothing would change that mind right now?
Uh, no, probably not. Yeah, I think we're
Well,
kind
you
of set with what we're gonna. I don't know. I don't know if we're quite. We're probably around 2/3, a little over. Will be corn next year.
and that, but you would have the option if something dramatically changes in the next 2 weeks or 2 months, since you didn't do much fall work. You have that option, but
Yep.
the bean market's not exactly acting like it wants more acres.
Yeah, and I say I would honestly, I would rather just be in a 50/50 rotation, but just for my cash flow standpoint and just, um, we're kind of in our 3rd year of just average yielding beans, it seems like. It seemed like 3 years ago we were real dry. Last year we had white mold. This year we got dry at the end, and we probably planted a little too wet, and maybe we had some of those, symptoms showed up later in the year. I don't know, but, um, 2021 we had very good beans, and it seems like since then we've just been very average and been, I don't know, mid-60s and at sub $10 beans. That's just not a lot of dollars an acre, and I guess we're not comfortable. It's just easier to raise the revenue with corn than it is for beans, and I guess we're willing to take our chances and plant corn.
You are not endorsing. You are giving agreement to what the analysts who sit on market say. I think it's easier for everybody to plant corn. I think we're going to see more corn. I mean, that's what they're saying because that's what they're reading. And I'm sure they're having conversations with guys like you, and that sounds like the sentiment for many people.
Yeah, and that's what we are too. It seems like even on a down year, which I wouldn't say this year's a flop, but it was definitely disappointing. And I mean, we still raised 220 some bushel corn, which on irrigated we'd like to be more than that. But I mean, at 220, we can still get over $4 for it today. I mean, there's 880 some bucks an acre. I mean, I feel like that's another $200 versus 65 bushel beans at $10. So it's just we got more room. We're a little more consistent. Um, yeah, it takes more inputs, and yeah, it takes more logistics at harvest time and moving it and handling it and storing it. But it's just it's just easier for us to manage. It seems like, or at least to count on, than raising soybeans at the moment.
Which means you're not going to rotate in a third or fourth crop because you've got the infrastructure set up. It's not to that point yet.
Well, we're not there yet, but I would never say that either. I mean, we've done cover crops for probably at least somewhat for 10 years now, and if there was something we could make work, I think we would seriously look at a third crop someday, but we're just not sure what that is or what the market is or what that might be. But I think maybe that would help some of our disease just to have another break in the cycle and would, lessen the load at harvest time. If you had something you could harvest a little earlier or a different season, or I don't know, we don't really have anybody that tries wheat. We had some guys do crops for silage or for cattle or something, but never really on the grain side. So nothing in the immediate future, but I wouldn't say we wouldn't try something different at some point too, especially if things stay in this trend. I think we at least consider the idea of it if there was something that we could get to make sense.
Being open is fine. But economics might force the discussion sooner than later. I mean, if we continue on a trend of these prices and below the cost of production, I think there'll be many people having that same thought process that you're talking about, Bryan.
Well, and I think too, if it would help with our breaking the cycle with some of these diseases or something, or we might get away with less. Then when they do go back to corn, might get away with less inputs if we're not using a fungicide or two passes of fungicide or the insects. I mean, you might have to kind of average 3 years together. I don't know how it would look. I know the banker doesn't like to hear that. You don't want to average or take away from 1 year, but at the same time, I do think I wouldn't say we're in a rut, but it does feel like we need to address some either on the fertility side or some side that we're overlooking, because it just seemed like when I started farming, we never dealt with disease. We used to spray fungicide because we thought we were getting a yield bump. We never really were concerned or focusing on just the disease side of it. But now 2 years in a row, we've had a disease in something, and yeah, when it gets to the point where it's too late to do something, you're just kind of out of options, and then it kind of hurts at harvest time. So, or like to be a little more proactive, I guess.
Give us where at in Nebraska you are, and tell me what your drought monitor level is right now.
Northeast Nebraska, we're 40 miles west of Sioux City, 40 miles north of Norfolk, Nebraska, and 40 miles south of Yankton, South Dakota. So we're kind of right between three bigger cities. And I saw something during harvest what our drought map was, and I I think we're like the second category. Well, I don't remember. There's 5 categories, but we were the second one from whatever the most severe one was. But I would think it was like 70 some days without rain or something like that.
And that's unfortunately a common way of life for many in your state. It seems in recent times you've been in more droughts than not in droughts.
Yeah. And the frustrating part this year, which it's that way every year, I guess, honestly, but this year there was chances. I mean, there was rain, but it just would never get here, or, it would go past us or it'd go south of us. I mean, it wasn't like everybody's getting these huge rains, but I mean, there was times we thought we were going to get something and we just never could quite get it to mount anything. I mean, it was close and there was chances, but it wasn't like it was just no chance, it just dried up. I mean, there was some optimism for a while, but we just could never quite get it to get here.
Well, a quarter inch buys you another few days. Even 2/10 can keep you alive until that pattern changes and gives you the half inch to 3/4.
Especially when it did stop, because I mean, we were through the month of July with the corn, and corn got planted. Some of it was a little bit earlier than normal, most of it was about average, but I mean, we were through the heaviest usage for water. I mean, so if we could have just, like you said, got something to kind of supplement, it would have been anything would have been appreciated, but yeah, we just couldn't get one.
Well, it's the story of our life is always dependent on the weather.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed. Your grandparents, mine, always dependent on that whatever falls from up above.
Yeah. And like I say, corn, it seems like if we have the right rains, we can get by with irrigating kind of fill in, but it seems like the rain is uh, more of a critical factor in soybeans. We need a rain in August to get our top end in soybeans. I mean, we can irrigate and irrigate and irrigate, but it doesn't beat a 2-inch rain. It just that just makes all the difference in the world.
Well, I appreciate you squeezing me in. I know it's a busy week and busy life for you always. I mean, there's nothing at the school to do today or something or what?
And we had a school board meeting last night, so
Okay.
we're good for this month.
Just one month, one meeting a month?
One meeting a month, yeah. Then we have some special meetings throughout the summer and when we do our budget, but most of the year it's just once a month.
All
So
right.
yeah, kids went back to school yesterday. Christmas break's over, so we're back in the groove, I guess you'd call it. So we're getting back to reality.
Yeah, that is the way it goes sometimes. I appreciate fitting me in, Bryan. Great to talk to you all year. I appreciate it a ton, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And glad to get to meet you and glad to have the conversations with you.
My thanks to Bryan Pippitt for his time, and thank you for watching. We appreciate you supporting this podcast. Subscribe. New episodes come out each and every Tuesday through YouTube or your favorite podcast player. And be sure to subscribe to the Market Insider newsletter. Comes your way each and every Monday. You find out what's going to be on this podcast before your friends and neighbors do. Isn't that fun to be ahead? That's kind of a value. That's a niche we do. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.